different thoughts on who's going to win this fight now based off of this hand injury, this layoff that's going to happen between both guys. I think Tim Tszyu is going to probably get a replacement opponent, but now the WBO is asking for some type of medical certification. They're asking for a doctor's report. They're asking for a timeline on how long he's going to be out. They want to know what type of therapy he's going to be doing. Pretty soon they're going to be asking for an insurance card. But I have no problem with that because I've always said when a guy gets injured, I have no problem with that because I've always said, when these guys get injured, just like me, if I'm gonna go out on FMLA at work, I have to go to Human Resources, get the FMLA paperwork, go to the doctor that's going to perform the surgery or whatever it needs to be done that I'm going to be out for a long time. He's got to fill it out. He's got to tell me how long I'm going to be out. And I got to return it back to my job and I got to square things away. So when I'm going to be out, when I'm injured, I got to square things away. Now, obviously, I'm not a professional boxer. I'm not trying to put myself on that level, but there's millions of dollars on the line. There's guys who are doing training camps. There's guys that are in that training camp getting paid. So for a fighter to just say I'm injured and not have to do anything, right? Or for a fighter to say, I just got mental health problems and not have to present some type of medical evaluation, not have any type of diagnosis. I mean, it never sat well with me. So shout out to the WBO for stepping up and requiring this information. Shout out to them because I've been saying this, and D-Style knows I've been saying this for years, that these guys should have to, provide proof of their injury, right? They need to give us present MRIs and X-rays or what have you. Get some type of a medical documentation with notes and just having a diagnosis there from a doctor, not just being able to say, I got this, I got that. That's bullshit. Hopefully those days are over. But I'm going to go to you, D-Style. I know I put a lot out there. What do you think of all this? And is this fight even going to happen, do you think?
Let me start off by saying this. I actually believe Jermell. Like, I really don't have any reason to not believe him. I just want to say that. He's been the opposite of his brother. Like he's fought everybody. I mean, he's fought the who's who in the division. Now, granted, a lot of it's circumstantial. A lot of those fighters were available in PBC, but nonetheless, he fought them, right? We've seen situations where fighters are in PBC and they don't fight each other. So it is what it is. So he still got it done. Shout out to him. And then, and he's shown that he's a guy that you could lose, and guess what? You could come back, you can win the rematch, you can make adjustments, and fans will still support you and all that. I think he's a fighting champion. The degree, I have no clue, but I know there's a hand injury. That I could say. What degree? Who fucking knows, right? But with that said, I do think it should just be standard protocol that proof needs to be shown. It's just that way no one gets accused of accusing and not believing and, you don't believe him or what? And nobody gets defensive. That's just the protocol, and that should be the protocol all the time, right? You should be able to present, just like if I got sick at work and I say, hey, I got to miss 30 days. They're going to be like, well, you got to miss 30 days. Well, what happened? Right? I'm going to need a doctor's note. To get FMLA, I'm going to need some paperwork. They're not just going to give it to me and just take my word. And if I say, well, you don't believe me or what? Like, they're going to say it's irrelevant if I believe you. We need the paperwork, right? So at the end of the day, that just needs to be protocol. As far as Tim Tszyu, look, I mean, I believe he's going to take another fight, we know, but I don't think he's going to fight a killer when he has the title shot right in front of him, right? They're going to postpone the fight. So people are like, oh, he should fight Fondura. Like, you think he's going to fight Fondura when he's got a title shot right there already? I'm not against it either, by the way. If he does that, hey, great. All right. If he fights Harrison, cool. I'm not against it or nothing. Don't get me wrong. But realistically, I think it's safe to say he's going to fight someone. He's going to be probably a 4 to 6 to 1 favorite against. And then we're going to get the fight later on in the year. And that's what I got to say.
Well, I believe Jermell Charlo injured his hand. As far as evidence, money can buy anything, including doctors signing off on documentation. So that's just a minor formality, I think. I don't see what he has to benefit by faking an injury, unless you want to go real conspiracy theorist, left-wing nut and say, oh, he's cycling out, whatever the fuck. Some people will go on that tangent, but I take his word for it only because his body of work leading up to this point has established that he's a person that does it. He doesn't take the shortcuts. He fights who he's supposed to fight. He's the undisputed champion. He had arguably one of the hardest past 2 undisputed of any of the undisputed champions currently in the game. And I don't know what Tim Tszyu's option is. They both have been inactive for relatively about the same amount of time. I think Tim Tszyu's last fight was last March, and Jermell's fight was a couple months afterwards. I guess Tim Tszyu, if he was smart, he would take a keep busy fight. Obviously not against a killer that could potentially take him out the rankings. There's a lot of guys hovering around his range in the rankings that would pose a possible threat to his opportunity at a title fight. But it'd be smart for him to stay sharp while he lets Jermell accumulate rust for the point when they do actually get back into the ring together. And that would give him at least some kind of advantage. I still, in the end, don't see him beating Jermell, but I've seen people out there who are adamant that Tim Tszyu can pull it off, but I've seen him get dropped twice. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, the note said 2 months, right? So realistically, we're looking back end of February, start of March, then you have to go into a camp. So the earliest he might be back in the ring is around May, June time. If Tim Tszyu fights in January, then I think he'll be in a much better position, especially if the fight happens like immediately with no warm up for Charlo, just because he might then be a bit cautious to throw that right hand. And if he's cautious to throw it, then I mean it was the left hand, wasn't it? Sorry, it was the left hand.
Mm-hmm. It was the left.
Yeah, he might be a bit more cautious to throw it, which means he might not lay it off in certain situations, which would give Tim a better advantage. But the fight aging on and taking longer to happen benefits Jermell a lot more than it benefits Tim, because Jermell and the whole PBC gang are used to not fighting actively. Like they're conditioned for that. Whereas Tim Tszyu, he is noticeably poor when he's not fighting 2, 3, or 4 times a year. Like his rhythm and everything just goes out the window. We saw it against Gachet in March. So yeah, the longer it takes without him getting in the ring, then that's better for Jermell. But if he can get us keep busy, then that might actually benefit him slightly. I still think Jermell is a massive, overwhelming favorite. But again, I always say big up to Tim for taking the challenge, taking the step up. But the worst thing he done was to sign for the PBC, allegedly. I don't know if he's actually fully signed, but he would have been better off just fighting whoever he's fighting and then just pushing the mandatory and getting that centre purse bid and letting one of the other broadcasters purchase it. That way, whatever happens here wouldn't be an issue.
I don't believe they're going to fight. It doesn't make any sense. I'll say this, and I said this 100 times on my own channel. I don't think Charlo is ducking Tim. I don't think that. I picked Charlo to beat Tim, so I don't think he's ducking. The injury, whether it's real or not, is kind of besides the point, because 2 months of the cast plus a couple of weeks of rehabilitation, that would put the fight. And bear in mind that Tim may take an interim. If he takes an interim in January, he may not get right back in there in like a May or a June or whatever. And then, what's going on with Charlo, what's going on with Tim, being honest, I don't think they're going to fight. I think Jermell is on his way up to 160 pounds. I think Errol's on his way up to 154. I think Maul is on his way up to 168. I think that we have seen the last of Jermell Charlo as a junior middleweight. For one, PBC fighters, look at what his schedule was this year. He fought once. So what? He's going to come back? No, I think he's probably going to end up fighting Carlos Adames for the WBC. His brother will move up, at which point they'll try to make the Andrade fight, because that's one of the few good fights that they can make, that instead of fighting big-ass Benavidez, he can fight Andrade, who's a middleweight who moved up in weight the same way he did. And I just think that they're cycling their guys, that the 147s are going to go up to 54, and the 154s are going to go to 60, and the 60s are going to go up to 68. And that's what I think it is. I don't feel that he's afraid of Tim Tszyu, but I don't really believe the injury, being honest. I don't really believe it. Like Hotboxing said, which is what I think, you can buy a doctor's note. If you have enough money, you can buy the documentation to show the WBO. You can do that. That's showing them something doesn't mean anything. When I look at it, there's a lot going on that makes me feel the injury is not real. Not exclusive to what I just said. For starters, Fox is said to be leaving the sport this year. That means that those fighters that were fighting on Fox will be migrating over to Showtime. That means that those fighters will be taking up a sizable portion of the budget. Fighters like Errol Spence, who's been fighting on Fox. Fighters like Deontay Wilder, who's been fighting on Fox. If Fox really is leaving this year, they're going back to Showtime, and Showtime has to pay for the Ruiz fight. Showtime has to pay for the Thurman fight. So these smaller fights, they get put on the back burner. That's what I really think is going on. I don't think it's an according to Hoyle Duck, but I don't think the injury is real either. That's how I feel about it. I don't.
Any of Julius's points, because he made some great points.
Yeah, honestly, all you guys made great points. There's so much to cover on this, man. You guys made some points. First of all, with the WBO, I love that. It's true. Hot boxing, you're totally right. I mean, they can just pay a guy, get a note, and it's over email. It's not like they're having a doctor's consultation in person or something, or even a conference call. It's literally just an email document. You take a picture with your phone and you email it to them. That's the proof that the WBO wants, right? So that's easy. But I still like that they're doing it. I know this. If I was a promoter, a network executive, and I had a fighter signed exclusively to fight on my platform, I would want evidence of an injury. I would want evidence, even if you claim the mental health thing. I want to see a doctor's note saying that you've been, getting psychiatric treatment and you've been prescribed, medication, whatever it is. I'd want to see that. So I understand that aspect of it. As far as the injury being real or not, I'll take him at his word. I will say this: the whole timing of this entire thing has been weird. You kind of announce a fight that's going to take place at some point next year, date, venue to be announced. Then you announce the official date and venue, really close to it. Then a month out, you hurt your hand in sparring, deep in camp. I can understand hurting your hand in sparring early in camp when maybe you're not in the best shape or something like that. But deep in camp when you're supposed to be kind of hitting it real good, I don't know, dude. Breaking your hand in two places, the timing seems weird. But I'll take him at his word. To Jules' point, though, if there's a track record at PBC, and if you look at the way they're trying to build things out, you know, Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz, those guys are coming up at 47. Guys like Errol Spence and Bud Crawford, who probably will be a PBC guy at some point, right? At least, you know, for a fight or two, they're not going to fight those guys. They're going to move up to 54. There's guys coming up at 54 like Fundora, and Mel ain't going to fight him. They're going to move him up to 60 and so on. And that's the way that they're doing business over there. I understand it, but the way that it traditionally works in boxing is the young guys fight the old guys and you pass that torch. They don't do torch passing over there. So I can see a situation, like I hope the fight gets rescheduled and we get Charlo and Tszyu, because it's an interesting fight, particularly if Tszyu can get maybe an interim title fight, maybe the WBO interim or something like that against the Tony Harrison. It's a close fight, but I would shade that 60-40 for Tszyu, because Tony Harrison's a front runner. He tends to fade late in fights. I think he may drop Tszyu early in that fight and be up after 5 rounds, but fade down the stretch. And I think Tszyu would learn a lot in that fight, and it would prepare him better for Charlo. I still favor Charlo in the matchup, but I think that helped prepare him more. But I hope we get that fight, but I can see, to Ring's point, that we may never get it. And Tszyu basically gets an interim belt and then gets bumped up or something like that. The whole division blows up. Fundora gets a belt. Basically, the same thing is going to happen at 47. It's happening already at 140, right? It's what happens when you get undisputed. It's eventually going to happen at 68.